What is up, guys? It is Christmas Eve. I hope you're all having a wonderful break so far. Um, while so many things may be on hold for this holiday break, the MMA world does not stop. And we do have a great card coming up next weekend in UFC 219. And before the new year starts, I just wanted to make this video because we do have a great schedule for the beginning of the year in 2018. I mean, let's just run down some of the fights lined up. First of all, next weekend is Chris Cyborg versus Holly Holm. That goes down for the women's featherweight title. Also on the card is Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Edson Barboza. That's a great lightweight matchup. Carlos Condit is back next weekend against Neil Magny. So many great fights. Not to forget, Jimmy Rivera versus John Lineker. That's a phenomenal bantamweight fight. So that's a stacked card to end the year. And then we move on to the first UFC card of the year in 2018. And that will be in St. Louis, which is headlined by Jeremy Stephens versus Do Ho Choi. I mean, what a phenomenal fight. This is the type of fight that, you're asking for. And it's always great to have two guys who are just willing to go out there and throw it down. I mean, it's always great to have that. We saw Do Ho Choi's last fight. It was against Cub Swanson. It was a fight of the year in 2016. It was one of the greatest fights you'll ever see. Jeremy Stephens always likes to go out there and throw down. I mean, Stephens has never been in a boring fight. So that's a hell of a headliner. Also on that card will be Kamaru Usman versus Emil Mech. That was supposed to be originally on UFC 219. Then they pushed it to UFC 220. And now that fight is going to be on St. Louis instead. And then we move on to UFC 220. That goes down on January 20th. That goes down in TD Garden in Boston. And that will be headlined by easily the most exciting fight that we've had in a long time in the heavyweight division. And it is Stipe Miocic versus Francis Ngannou for the title. I mean, you can't ask for much more. Also on the card is Daniel Cormier versus Volkan Ozdemir for the light heavyweight title. I mean, once you have two of the heaviest champions defending their titles on the same card, you can't ask for much more. That's going to be a phenomenal night. And then it only gets better from that point on as we go to Australia for the next pay-per-view. And then we got Robert Whittaker versus Luke Rockhold lined up. That's going to be for the undisputed middleweight title. Remember, George St. Pierre vacated not too long ago, and that promoted the then interim champ, Robert Whittaker, as a real champ, and he will be defending his title for the first time against Luke Rockhold. That's also a phenomenal fight. So, a hell of a schedule lined up for 2018. And before the new year starts, I just wanted to make this video. And today, I'll be listing 5 fights that needs to happen soon. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So starting with number 5, we have Justin Gaethje versus Kevin Lee. I mean, this is just a phenomenal matchup. And if we're talking about the pure level of interest, it is most certainly not number 5 on the list. It'd be much higher. But I only put this one at 5 just because of the pure timeline that I see it happening if it does happen. Justin Gaethje and Kevin Lee both stated that they want to take some time off after their last loss. Kevin Lee, we last saw lose to Tony Ferguson for the interim title. Gaethje coming off a tough loss not even a month ago against Eddie Alvarez. That was a great fight. It was a war. Justin Gaethje suffering his first professional loss. And, it looks like both fighters are going to take some time off. So that's the only reason why this fight is on number 5 on this list. But, I mean, listen. Who doesn't want to see Justin Gaethje versus Kevin Lee? Justin Gaethje is one of the most exciting fighters that the UFC has ever seen. Kevin Lee is one of the most exciting talents coming up in one of the most stacked divisions in the lightweight division. And both guys like to stay aggressive. They both are very well-rounded. And if you mash these two up, you're likely going to see something very, very phenomenal. And it'd also be interesting to see two very high-level fighters trying to get back on the winning track, and doing it against each other will be very tough for both of them. But it's most certainly a fight that I like to see somewhere down the line in 2018. At number 4, we have Cub Swanson versus Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie. We saw the Korean Zombie return to action earlier this year against Dennis Bermudez after a 3.5-year layoff, and while many did think that the Korean Zombie was not going to be able to pull it off, he did, and he did it in a spectacular fashion, a first-round knockout. Cub Swanson, on the other hand, is coming off a tough loss to a rising star in Brian Ortega just a few weeks ago, and the reason why this will make for such a phenomenal matchup is because of their fighting styles and abilities, and you know that when these two guys are matched up, you're 100% going to get an exciting fight. And the thing is, it's getting tougher for these top 5 guys to keep their place because the talent is so stacked in the featherweight division right now, and the young talents coming up are very, very scary. I mean, guys like Duho Choi, Yair Rodriguez, and recently Josh Emmett entered the picture in top 5. And these top guys will want to stay active in order to keep up with the evolving talent that is in the 145-pound division right now. The only problem I see with this matchup is that Cub Swanson is now a free agent. He needs to sign with somebody, and we don't know who he's going to sign with. But if he does re-sign with the UFC, I'd most certainly love to watch him square up against the Korean Zombie in 2018. And at number 3 comes Amanda Nunes and Raquel Pennington. And while many of you might not agree with this fight, I'll tell you why this fight makes sense. Amanda Nunes has been easily one of the most dominant champions in recent memory. I mean, who can disagree with that? She beat Valentina Shevchenko twice, although the second fight was somewhat controversial. She beat two of the biggest names in the sport in Miesha Tate and Ronda Rousey, arguably retired both of them. She also beat Sarah McMahon. I mean, she's been on a tear. She really has. And the only 2 fights that make sense for her right now, in my opinion, is Raquel Pennington and Kat Zingano, because Holly Holm will be fighting for the featherweight title next weekend. Don't get me wrong, Nunes and Zingano will cross paths once again. You can almost assure that. And they will fight again. But right now, I do think it's time to give it to Raquel Pennington, considering Pennington's phenomenal form that she's been in. And here's the other thing. If we look at this fight stylistically, I think Raquel Pennington's style is one of the most threatening to Nunes, and here's why. What Pennington brings is a very, very tough and durable, and she can also do a little bit of everything. She is able to consume shots and continue to move forward. She is very, very tuned as far as her cardio is concerned. She will not tire. She will continue to come at you. And if you want to defeat somebody like Amanda Nunes, who hits like a truck, she hits like a truck, but she starts to slow down. She does slow down. And in a 5-round fight, you need somebody like Raquel Pennington in order to beat Nunes. And Pennington, because of that durable, if she can survive the first couple of rounds, the shots that Amanda throws, then I do believe that in the latter rounds, Pennington's going to give Nunes a lot of problems. And I do think that this is one of the most interesting matchups, although many people don't think so, that you can make in women's MMA right now. And Amanda Nunes, will need a matchup soon. So will Raquel Pennington. Pennington hasn't fought since last November. She hasn't fought in over a year, so they will both need matchups very soon. I believe Pennington is recovering from an injury, but I will most certainly like to see this fight somewhere down the line. And let's move on to number 2. Now, number 2, this is my personal favorite fight currently that you can make stylistically, and it is because it is going to be it's just going to be a barn burner if this does go down. And it is Jorge Masvidal versus Darren Till. Now, the thing about Darren Till is that this guy has real championship potential. He has a superstar potential. He has become he has the potential to become the next big thing. He really does. I mean, he can talk. We've seen this before. He can fight. We just saw it against Donald Cerrone. And I don't care if Donald Cerrone is a natural lightweight. Donald Cerrone has been performing phenomenally at welterweight until he ran into Jorge Masvidal and Darren Till. Darren Till can do it all, really. I mean, this guy has the character, this guy has the skills, and in order to build him up, you don't want him fighting against somebody lower than him. You want him to continue to climb the ranks, continue to fight somebody higher. And that's exactly what Conor McGregor did in his rise to fame. He continued to fight higher ranked guys, and he climbed up there in such short amount of time and became the champion. And that's what you need to do with a guy like Till. You don't want him fighting Mike Perry. You don't want him fighting Cameron Usman, at least not right now. You want Till to fight somebody higher, and I think Jorge Masvidal presents a perfect fight for Darren Till to even further build him up. Because Masvidal is one of the best fighters in the welterweight division, I mean, in my opinion. He just got outclassed by Stephen Thompson. I mean, Stephen Thompson's going to outstrike 99% of the fighters in the UFC. And Jorge Masvidal just got outclassed on feet. And here's the thing. Darren Till, while his striking is very, very good, we haven't seen him against somebody that can really bring it. I mean, Donald Cerrone was backing up most of that fight. Donald Cerrone did not press forward. He basically just backed up against the cage, and Till was able to, catch him. Masvidal's not going to let him do that. Masvidal will come forward. He has one of the best chins, and Masvidal's good everywhere. I mean, we really saw how good his jiu-jitsu was against Damian Maia. Who survives Damian Maia for 3 rounds like that? I mean, not many people can do that, unless your name's Tyron Woodley or Colby Covington. But this fight, I want to see very, very soon. Till, hasn't fought in a few months now, and Till's gonna need a fight. Till's gonna need a fight soon. Masvidal just fought last November. And I do think that Masvidal will be able to come back soon. So, this fight in the welterweight division, I would love to see this fight happen. I mean, this is one of the most interesting matchups that I can think of right now. And as stacked as the welterweight division is, Darren Till is a star in the making, and you want to see him fight against somebody higher. So that's the number 2. And let's move on to the big number 1. And the big number 1, it is Conor McGregor versus Tony Ferguson. Now, I know that you guys probably hear this a lot nowadays. Conor needs to defend his title. He needs to come back and fight MMA. And it's all true. It really is all true. See, Conor McGregor in a lot of ways really has disappointed me. And I used to be one of the biggest Conor McGregor fans when he was on the rise to fame. He was just spectacular to watch. I don't think anybody can deny that. Just the way he sold the fights. He talked. He fought actually in there and performed. He lived up to his expectations. He lived up to his own predictions. He had so many things that not a lot of people had before. And everything about him was so exciting. And once he got a little bit of a taste of that money and fame, I think it really did change him. Money does change you, and I think this is a perfect case. His recent actions hasn't been too pretty. It was very disappointing to watch him jump inside a Bellator cage, act all chaotic, and some people say that he did that on purpose to get out of the fight with Tony Ferguson for a little bit, and I think they might have a point. I do think that money has changed Conor. And it really sucks to watch somebody who's the biggest star of the sport act the way he is right now. But this is the number 1 fight that needs to happen. And it needs to happen quite immediately, too. I mean, Conor, fought Floyd Mayweather last in August. And, that was a boxing match. It was basically an entertainment. It was a show. It's time for him to get back in there. And he's the champion. He's holding up one of the most stacked divisions I mentioned before. One of the most stacked divisions in the UFC in the lightweight division. It has so much talent right now. I mean, we got Khabib and Edson Barboza going at it. Justin Gaethje, Kevin Lee, Dustin Poirier is on tear. I mean, so many talent coming up, and especially in a division like that, you can't have the champion hold the division up as Conor McGregor is doing right now. Tony's perfectly correct. Conor needs to defend or vacate. And that's just for the sake of the sport. It's nothing against Conor, but in order for the sport to keep evolving, for the sport to continue to, make young talents, kind of develop young talents, you need to make the divisions just flow. And Conor McGregor is holding up the flow right now, and it's just not a pretty sight to watch. So, this is definitely the number one fight right now that needs to happen quite immediately as well. And there you go. That is the 5 fights that needs to happen immediately. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll most likely be back here talking about UFC 219, breaking down a couple of fights, making predictions. But if there's any particular video that you want me to make, please comment below. Thank you. Have a good holidays, and I'll see you next time.